So my name is Matteo. I will start with a story. A few months ago, while I was freelancing, I was contacted by a potential client. So we sat down for a coffee, and by the way, this is not me, this is just a stock image, to discuss about the project they wanted to hire me for. So he started going through a few points. And the first sentence that he said was, "I don't like Apple," which is a very weird thing to say to an iOS developer you're trying to hire to make your app. And it was the day after Steve Jobs died, so it was really the right moment to say something like that. Anyway, he went on explaining how he was in the business of making furniture. And at that point I already started wondering what kind of app for furniture this guy had in mind. That might have been an interesting thing. It's a field I don't know. Maybe there was some weak spot to address with an app. Of course, he pronounced the magical words, "I have a great idea." And actually his great idea was just a messaging app. But it was not a normal messaging app like Kik or WhatsApp. But it was a messaging app where you actually had only 3 default messages and you couldn't write your own ones. Because in his opinion, people don't want to write messages. They just want to send them. And he ended the conversation with the thing that I hear a lot, which was, "I'll be happy to share the profits." Of course, the profits that would never exist with an idea like that one. So I would like to go through these points to see how this is something that happens a lot in my field. This is something I hear around a lot of times from people that want to start their own companies or have ideas for apps. And I would like to start with the last one. So you want to share the profits. You have an idea and you think that that idea entitles you to part of the profits of the company. Well, I have bad news for you. You are worthless. You are not worth anything. Having the idea doesn't entitle you to part of the profits for that idea. You cannot think that having an idea entitles you to sit on a chair and tell other people what to do. So you are worthless unless, of course, you are not. And how can you not be worthless? Well, there are different ways. The main way, the easiest way, is to provide money. If you have the money that will keep the company running, if you are paying the salaries for the people that are making the app, of course, that's value to the company. That's what creates the company, what makes it possible to have the company in the first place. Because in the end, developers have to pay their bills too. So they're not there just for the hope of future profits. But that's not the only way, of course. There are different ways how you can be worth something in a company. The first and most obvious is you are a developer, a designer, or you have some technical skill relevant to the company. And by technical, I mean anything. Like you're doing something related to education. You maybe are a teacher with decades of experience. You are doing something about chemistry, and you are a chemist with an MIT degree. So anything that is related to the business of the company gives you value in the company. Another way to have value is to have a good name and connections in the industry. Sometimes this helps a lot. It depends on the type of the company. Sometimes if you're just doing a consumer product, it helps less. But still, you can use that to build hype. And you have to pay attention to these though, because if you look, for example, at Color, that was the opposite. They generated a hype with their name, and then it was just a spectacular failure. But still, this is something that might be worth for your company. Another way is that you're able to bring in investors. If you don't have the money yourself, maybe you have connections to people that have the actual money that will make the company possible. And last is you are able to bring in clients. Maybe you already have contracts signed for the product you are going to build. I've been approached by a guy that wanted to make a game, and he already had a contract signed by Samsung for an exclusive on Android, for the Android version. So that's already something, again, very valuable. You already have some written contract that will guarantee some earnings in the future. All these things will dictate how much you get from the shares in the company. But again, the misconception is that the company is yours and you will get 100% of it. It doesn't work that way. Everybody will be working on the company. Everybody that starts working on the company on day zero will be a founder of the company. So they will get shares proportional to their contribution to the company. Unless they get a salary, of course, and then, of course, they get less shares. This needs to be negotiated. But the mistake that I see around a lot is that people think that they have an idea and they are entitled to the whole company. So, back to the list. What's next? I have a great idea. Well, the great idea was, of course, not that great. And this is, again, your idea is worthless. This is something you will hear in our field a lot of times. A lot of people will tell you it's not important the idea you have. What matters is execution. The execution of your idea will change your idea during the period. And how well you execute on that idea is going to show the success at the end or not. For this, there is a very simple example. Everybody knows what this is, I think. Is there anybody that doesn't know what this game is? No, everybody knows this. Does anybody know what this is? This is one person, a game developer, of course. This is same concept. You throw stuff at a structure to destroy it. Same concept as Angry Birds. Angry Birds is world famous, made millions. This game, I don't even remember what's the name of this game. Some of you might think, well, but Angry Birds probably came first, that's why they are the famous ones. No, this game came 2 years earlier than Angry Birds, and it was on the iPad too. So, same idea, same concept, same platform, what matters is execution. Rovio made a better execution on the same idea, and that's what made the success of the game. As I said, though, like, the first idea you have is probably not going to be the idea that you ship. Because there is another thing that everybody will tell you in our industry, and is that you will pivot, probably. As you build your idea, you will get insights in the market you're trying to serve. And that will probably lead to decisions to change the product or to pivot to some other idea that works better than your first idea. So this is another reason why your first idea is not that worth anything. If ideas were worth by themselves, there would be a market for ideas. There would be people around just selling their ideas. But nobody does that. Nobody is going to pay you just to have an idea, because everybody knows that the idea by itself is just worthless. And another thing that I see a lot around is that people that want to tell you their ideas want you to sign an NDA, because they are afraid that you're going to steal their idea. Well, first of all, as a developer, you should never sign these NDAs on ideas, because these NDAs put you in this situation. They are designed such as, if anything goes wrong, you are going to pay enormous fees for that. But on the other side, you're not getting anything. You're just getting the privilege to hear that idea, and you're putting yourself in a risk to pay very high fees. So you should not sign them. You should not sign NDAs on an idea, because again, if the idea itself needs an NDA to be protected, then it's not a good idea anyway. If by just hearing what the idea is, anybody can copy it, where is the value in that idea? Why are not people doing that already? Probably because there is not that much value in that idea. Back to the list, I make furniture. This is something, again, I see a lot. A lot of people think, oh, let's make an app. There is money there. And they have no idea what an app takes to build. They have no idea how much money it costs. They have no idea how long it takes. So the thing is, if you really want to make an app, do your homework. Make research on the market that you are trying to serve. Look at what's the problem you're trying to solve. Are you solving any problem at all, or you just have a niche to build an app because it's cool and you think you're going to make money? This is, again, like a very good predictor of success or failure in companies. A lot of people just start companies without being informed at all on what they are going to do. They don't know the market. They don't ask anybody if they are willing to pay for a product like that. They don't do research on the fact that other people might have tried that before and failed. So there might be reasons why that idea is not out there. So doing your homework is really something important where you're trying to start a company. Because it's good to learn from mistakes, but it's better to learn from mistakes made by other people. So you don't have to repeat them. You don't have to fail as they failed before. And then there is the last part of the discussion I had with the person. I don't like Apple. And I was wondering, why do you want to make an app on an iOS device if you don't like Apple? But moreover, like, why are you willing to do something you don't like? Why are you putting yourself in a situation to be forced to do something that you hate? Why are you choosing this? There are plenty of other things out there you can do that you can enjoy more, that can give you money as well. Sometimes the reason is that people think that having a company looks like this. You're going to be rich, you're going to be on some wonderful beach somewhere taking vacations. But the reality is that having a company is like this. So if you're not doing something you're really passionate about, if you're not doing something you really like, you're not going through this. When problems will come, and they will come because running a company is not an easy thing. There are ups and downs, there are obstacles along the way, you will give up. If it's something that you hate, you are just looking for an excuse to give up and to stop. So be prepared to face these storms. They might lead to the beach that you saw before, but you have to go through them. So we realize that your idea sucks, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe what I said just reinforces what you already had in your mind, which is great. But if you are realizing that maybe the idea you have is not the right idea, let's see how you can actually have a better idea. There was a very interesting conversation at the end of the keynote in 1997 when Steve Jobs came back to Apple. After presenting the new Mac, there was still a Q&A at the end of the keynote. So a guy stands up in the crowd and he looks quite pissed off and he starts asking,
I would like, for example, for you to express in clear terms how, say, Java, in any of its incarnations, addresses the ideas embodied in OpenDoc. And when you're finished with that, perhaps you could tell us what you personally have been doing for the last 7 years.
So this was a guy that was angry because Apple took out some technology from their computers. And after that, he went ready to put it on a personal level. And Steve Jobs gave him a great answer, in my opinion.
One of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room.
This is a big problem I see. People start with a technology. They think their idea is the technology, but it's never the technology. The technology is a tool to solve a problem. And what you have to find is that problem. What you have to look for is a problem that people are having in their lives, in their work, and then try to solve that problem in a way that is easy for them to try and is going to make their life better. So you don't have to do an app for the sake of an app. You don't have to invent a technology for the sake of technology. That will be just another step in people's life that will make their life harder instead of easier, and they will never use your app. There are people that are doing research on technology, and those people are researchers in universities. That's the place where people do research for some technology that in the future might be useful. But they're not making products. They are not trying to sell products to people. They are just trying to advance technology. And they're creating the tools that you might use to solve people's problems. But you have to find the problems first. And then look for the technology that will help you to solve that problem. And if that technology leads to an app, then that's the right answer. When I was looking for ideas for my company, I always thought that I was without ideas. I was speaking with a friend of mine, and I told him, I don't have ideas for companies. Everybody seems to have a lot of ideas, and actually I don't have any idea. But what it made me understand is that it was not that I didn't have any idea, but I was discarding a lot of them. Everybody has ideas, but having some more experience in the field, I already knew which ones were the bad ones. I already knew which ones were the expensive ones. So I was just not looking hard enough to the things that I did and I cared about. And then, that moment, it was clear. So looking back, when I was a child, my first interest was chemistry. I had a chemistry set for Christmas. I was doing a lot of experiments by myself, thinking that I was going to create the next new chemical that would change the world as every kid thinks. Of course, that didn't happen. But I spent a lot of time doing chemistry. Then I grew up and I started enjoying video games. I played a lot of video games through my young years. I was pretty good at it. And this thing led me to be interested in computers. This is how I got my first computer, to play video games. And then I started being interested in computer science, and that led me to study computer science in the university and led me to be an iOS developer. So the iPad came out, and I started doing development for the iPad. But another thing that I can see in my life is that while I was studying, I had to get money. And I did it teaching. I was teaching math, physics, and computer science in high school. That was a way for me to pay my rent and my studies. And that was something, again, I was passionate about. I was really passionate about education. And a lot of students were happy by the way I was teaching things. So, looking back now, I can see these 4 things. And what am I doing now? What is my company about? Well, my company is about making an educational video game about chemistry on the iPad. This is what I'm doing now. This is my idea. And came from my past, came from looking at me. One day Steve Jobs at a talk, I don't remember what university it was for a graduation at some university. He said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards.
And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
So everybody of you has some passion. Everybody of you has some specific knowledge. And everybody of you can find some ideas, can find something that doesn't work in this world that can be solved. And that's going to be a good idea. If you still can't do it, we have a great pitch club in Amsterdam. You're free to come. Mike is really good at taking this out from you. So just go and find your awesome idea. Thank you very much.